Usually, when a business is actively losing customers, there's a really visible, undeniable culprit.
Yeah, totally.
You walk into a physical retail store and the problems just present themselves immediately, right? Like the shelves are bare or the fluorescent lighting overhead is flickering and giving you a headache.
Or the staff is just staring at their phones instead of greeting you.
Exactly. You can physically point at those things and diagnose the issue. Empty shelves mean supply chain problems. Bad service means training issues.
Right. The friction is tangible.
Yeah. It exists in the three-dimensional world.
Yeah.
And, as a business owner, that visibility is almost comforting.
Because it gives you a clear target, right?
Right. You can categorize the problem, fire the bad employee, fix the light bulb, whatever. But stepping into the world of automotive e-commerce, and specifically dealership websites, that visible friction just disappears.
It's completely invisible.
You're looking at this digital showroom landscape where, metaphorically, the pipe is leaking gallons of water, but the floor is completely dry.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
So welcome to today's deep dive. We've got a massive stack of sources today pointing to a silent conversion killer that is just hiding in plain sight on dealership websites across the world.
It's everywhere.
It really is. And the fascinating part for you listening is that the culprit isn't what you'd intuitively guess. It's not a lack of inventory. It's not an uncompetitive pricing strategy.
Right.
It's not the resolution of the vehicle photos. And it is definitely not the sales team on the floor.
Nope. The problem is the website itself.
But not because the servers are crashing or the code is fundamentally broken. It's failing because it has been slowly, quietly, and deliberately buried.
Buried under a mountain of good intentions.
Yeah.
That's the tragedy of this whole situation. Nobody sets out to build a terrible website.
Right. Nobody wants to ruin their own digital storefront.
Exactly. What we're actually looking at is the slow, creeping accumulation of third-party weight. It just happens one line of code at a time until the entire structural integrity of the site starts to buckle.
Okay, let's unpack this central metaphor from our research because I think it frames this entire phenomenon perfectly. The sources describe how the dealership website has transformed from a digital showroom into a, quote, vendor parking lot.
Yeah, a vendor parking lot. That phrase completely reorients how we should view digital real estate, I think.
It totally does.
Because think about what a website is supposed to be. It's an owned, controlled environment where a brand dictates the customer experience. But the average dealership website today no longer belongs exclusively to the dealership.
Right.
It's a highly contested timeshare. It belongs to the primary website provider, sure, but it also belongs to the inventory syndication provider, the third-party chat vendor, the digital retailing platform, the trade and appraisal widget.
And the payment calculator software.
Exactly.
And the call tracking scripts, the analytics dashboards, the customer data platform, the OEM compliance monitors.
We can honestly keep going.
Yeah.
The video walk-around vendor, the third-party review syndicator, the exit intent pop-up software, the retargeting pixels for Facebook and Google.
The ad agency's custom scripts. I mean, it is a staggering list of third-party tools.
It's massive. And every single one of those entities is actively competing for finite resources, server bandwidth, screen real estate, and most importantly, the customer's limited cognitive attention.
So we have to ask why a business owner would allow their digital front door to become a parking lot for third-party software companies. Like, if you ran a physical car lot, you wouldn't let 15 different outside companies set up folding tables in your lobby to pitch their services to your customers.
You would call security.
Right. You kick them out.
But in the digital space, the mechanics of vendor relationships creates this really perverse incentive structure. Every single one of those software vendors wants, and frankly needs, a piece of the customer journey to survive.
Because their entire business model relies on generating measurable engagement, right?
Exactly. They have to justify their monthly subscription fee to the dealership. So they demand visibility. They designed their tools to demand that their button sits above the fold on the mobile screen.
They want their tracking script firing the exact millisecond the page loads.
Yes, and they engineer their widgets to pop up aggressively, trying to intercept the shopper. Ultimately, they're all just fighting to claim credit when that shopper finally converts and buys a vehicle.
And the customer just gets caught in the crossfire of a turf war they didn't even know they walked into. I mean, a person comes to a website with a very simple goal. They want to look at a Ford F-150.
Right.
But what they actually experience is a committee meeting disguised as a website.
A committee meeting where every participant is shouting over the others. And the hook here, the really insidious part of this dynamic, is that if you isolate any single tool on that list, the vendor pitching it had a phenomenal argument.
Oh, for sure. The pitches always make sense.
Right. The chat widget was pitched as a way to capture late-night leads when the store is closed. The trade-in tool was pitched to increase used car acquisition.
The pop-up was pitched to push holiday specials. Like, in a vacuum, every single tool makes logical business sense.
But when you stack them all together, they are quietly suffocating the site. They're killing conversions before a shopper even decides to become a lead.
Okay, so let's dig into the mechanics of how this actually happens. Because the sources highlight the biggest initial lie vendors tell when pitching these tools to dealerships. They all claim their tool is, quote, easy to add.
Easy to add. Yeah, it's just a simple piece of JavaScript. That's the phrase that has doomed thousands of websites.
Just drop it in.
Right. The vendor will say, just drop this little snippet of code into your tag manager and you're good to go. It's totally free to install.
Let's pause and explain that mechanism, because I think a lot of people hear tag manager and imagine some highly organized IT filing cabinet. How does a tag manager actually function, and why does it make it so dangerous to just keep adding things?
So a tag manager, like Google Tag Manager, for instance, is essentially an empty container that sits on your website. Before tag managers existed, if a dealership wanted to add a new tracking pixel or a chat tool, they had to actually call their web developer.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, the developer had to manually open the site source code, paste the new script in, test it, and publish the update. It was a slow process.
It introduced a natural layer of friction.
Precisely. You had to pay a developer to do it, so you only added what really mattered. A tag manager removes all of that friction.
It's just a single piece of code you install once.
Right. And after that, anyone with the login, the marketing director, the ad agency, an intern, can just log into a dashboard, paste a new vendor's script into the container, and hit publish.
So the tag manager then automatically injects that script into the website for every visitor.
Yes. It democratized web development, which was great for speed, but terrible for discipline.
It literally turned the website into a free-for-all. So technically, the vendor is telling the truth. The script is easy to install. It takes 30 seconds.
But our research emphasizes that nothing is actually free. There's no such thing as a free website plugin.
No. The text details this staggering list of what it calls the hidden taxes of these plugins.
Because the vendor is selling the upside, the promise of a 5% lift in leads. But the dealership and the customer are paying the tax.
So what's the most immediate tax?
The load time cost.
Yeah.
We have to look at how a web browser actually works to understand this. When you type a URL into your phone, your browser reads the website's code from top to bottom.
Okay.
When it encounters a piece of third-party JavaScript like a chat widget, it often stops rendering the visual page entirely.
Wait, really? It just stops?
Yeah, it has to reach out to the vendor's server, wait for the script to download, parse the code, understand what it does, execute the code, and then it can finally go back to drawing the pictures of the cars.
Wow. So every single script you add forces the customer's phone to make a detour.
Multiple detours. If you have 20 plugins, the browser is running all over the country talking to 20 different servers before it can show the customer the price of the vehicle.
And that takes milliseconds, but those milliseconds compound into full seconds of delay. And beyond the load time tax, there's the visual cost. Screen real estate is finite, right? Especially on a phone.
Oh, absolutely. Does this new widget cover the photo of the car? Does it block the navigation menu?
Then there is the conversion cost. If a tool distracts a user from the primary goal of calling the dealership, you might gain a chat interaction, but you lose a macro conversion.
We also have the trust cost. If a plugin looks cheap, or it functions poorly, or it aggressively asks for an email address before the user has even seen the inventory,
the customer just loses trust in the dealership itself.
Yeah. Then there's the management cost. Someone at the dealership actually has to monitor all these tools. They have to respond to the chats, follow up on the trade leads, update the pop-up graphics.
Add in the attribution cost, where multiple tools take credit for the same exact sale, and the customer attention cost. It's really a classic death by a thousand cuts scenario.
It is. And the fundamental flaw in how dealerships operate here is evaluating these tools in total isolation. The vendor sits in the general manager's office, pulls up a polished case study, and says, our payment calculator increased time on site by 20% in our beta test.
And the dealer, wanting to innovate, says, great, put it in the tag manager.
Exactly. What they completely fail to measure is the cumulative tax that payment calculator places on the rest of the website's ecosystem.
I kept coming back to an analogy while reading through these sources. Think about a teenager getting their first car and buying bumper stickers.
Okay, I like this.
You go on a road trip to the Grand Canyon, you buy a bumper sticker, you slap it on the back window. Yeah, it's a little personality.
Sure.
One sticker is fine. It was easy to add. Then you go to a concert, you add a band sticker. Then a sticker for your favorite sports team, a political slogan, a funny joke.
Right, they all have a purpose.
Individually, each sticker had a specific purpose, and you had a valid reason for putting it there. But eventually, you've added so many easy-to-add stickers that you have literally blacked out your own rearview mirror.
And you back into a telephone pole.
Exactly. You crash.
That captures the dynamic perfectly. Except, the crash on a website isn't a loud, dramatic crunch of metal.
No.
It's a completely silent event. The user simply closes the tab and leaves. You never even hear it happen.
Taking that analogy further, let me just present a scenario. Let's say a vendor pitches a new trade-in valuation widget. They promise it will increase trade-in form submissions by 5%.
Okay.
But the code for that widget is so heavy and complex that it slows down the entire vehicle detail page. As a result of that slow page, 10% of the overall website traffic gets frustrated and bounces off the site entirely. Did the dealership actually win that transaction?
They lost disastrously. They sacrificed the macro for the micro. And this goes right to the heart of what digital strategy actually means. We have to clearly separate micro conversions from macro conversions.
Walk us through that distinction, because vendors love to blur those lines in their reporting.
Oh, they do. So a micro conversion is a minor behavioral step a user takes on a website. Expanding a photo gallery is a micro-conversion. Clicking the Value Your Trade button is a micro-conversion.
Right.
Opening the chat window and typing hello is a micro-conversion. Vendors aggressively optimize for micro-conversions because they are incredibly easy to track.
And they provide immediate dashboard proof that the tool is functioning. It justifies the monthly invoice.
Exactly. But the macro-conversion is the terminal goal of the website. For an e-commerce site like Amazon, the macro conversion is a completed checkout.
And for a dealership.
For a dealership, the macro conversion is a confirmed appointment or a verified lead that actually results in selling a physical vehicle.
The only thing the dealership actually takes to the bank is the macro conversion.
Right. When you allow vendors to optimize your site to generate micro conversions for their own reporting, you almost always introduce friction that actively reduces the macro conversion. You get more chat starts but fewer sold cars.
Wow. Which naturally brings us to the most immediate, measurable, and destructive tax paid by this bumper sticker approach to website management.
Speed.
Speed. Because the currency every plugin uses to pay its tax is milliseconds. Our sources make an incredibly compelling argument here. We have to completely stop thinking about website speed as an IT metric and start treating it as a behavioral metric.
Shifting that paradigm is the key to solving the whole problem. For decades, speed was something the IT department monitored on a dashboard in a server room somewhere. It was about ping rates and packet loss.
Right.
But speed is not a technical vanity metric. Speed is a sales condition.
Let's dissect that phrase, sales condition. Because it implies that a slow site creates a physical change in the customer's state of mind. Like a sluggish page cascades into a psychological nightmare for the user.
Well, think about the autonomic response you have when you tap a link on your phone and the screen just stays white for 3 seconds.
Oh, it's infuriating.
Your heart rate actually goes up. Your frustration spikes instantly. A slow page makes a customer impatient. It significantly increases the likelihood that they're just going to abandon the session.
But the secondary psychological effects are even more damaging, right? The sources mention that it erodes the perception of professionalism.
It absolutely does. If the page is struggling to load, the high-resolution photos of the vehicles feel clunky to swipe through.
Yeah, the buttons don't react immediately when tapped, so they feel broken.
And the lead forms hesitate when you hit submit, making you wonder if your personal information actually went through or if it just vanished into the ether.
Subconsciously, the customer starts drawing parallels. They think, if this dealership can't even afford to keep their website running smoothly, how disorganized is their finance department going to be?
Exactly. How are they going to handle servicing my car? You are communicating incompetence before you have even said a single word.
And the financial impact of this incompetence is staggering when you factor in the money spent on paid advertising. I mean, dealerships are spending tens of thousands of dollars every single month driving traffic.
Huge amounts of money.
They're buying Google search ads, running Facebook dynamic inventory campaigns, sponsoring YouTube pre-roll. They are paying a massive premium for every single click.
And then they lose that highly expensive, hard-won traffic at the loading screen, just because the page takes 5 seconds to become usable.
That is insane.
It's like pouring expensive water into a bucket that you have deliberately filled with holes. It defies all business logic.
There's this vivid analogy in the text that paints this picture so well. Imagine a dealership pays an advertising agency to run a massive campaign to get a customer to physically drive down to their showroom.
Okay.
The marketing works. The customer parks, walks up to the glass front door of the dealership. But instead of letting them inside, the dealership makes the customer stand on the sidewalk while 6 different third-party vendors tackle them.
Just rush them at the door.
Yeah. One vendor tries to hand them a brochure. Another shoves a clipboard in their face, asking for their email. A third tries to estimate their trade-in value.
All while the customer's just trying to look through the glass to see the car they drove there to buy.
Exactly.
If a general manager saw that happening on their physical asphalt, they would lose their mind. They would physically remove those vendors from the property.
They call the cops.
But that exact scenario plays out digitally thousands of times a day.
Wow.
A customer clicks a Google ad for a specific SUV. They land on the site. The site stutters. The hero image struggles to load.
A cookie consent banner drops from the top.
A chat widget slides out from the bottom right with a loud ping. A digital retailing tool expands on the left.
A pop-up darkens the screen, asking for an email to unlock a $500 coupon.
And the customer's brain gets completely overwhelmed by the sensory input, and they just leave.
But let's look at the reporting at the end of the month. Because this is where the dysfunction is truly hidden. The customer got annoyed and left. But what does the advertising agency report?
Oh, the ad agency looks at their platform and reports a successful, valid click. They say, look, we drove a high-intent shopper to your site. Our job is done.
And what about the chat vendor?
The chat vendor looks at their analytics and reports that their widget successfully fired, appeared on screen, and offered engagement.
And the primary website provider?
They report a valid session and a page view.
Wow. So the ad agency is celebrating the click, the chat vendor is celebrating the impression, the website provider is logging the traffic.
And the dealership gets absolutely nothing. No lead, no appointment, no sale. They just leak money.
So what happens? The ad agency blames the website for having a terrible conversion rate. The website provider blames the ad agency for sending low-quality, low-intent traffic.
And the dealer's stuck in the middle, writing checks to everyone and wondering why sales are down.
Tying this all together, website speed and plug-in bloat is fundamentally a media efficiency issue. It dictates the return on your ad spend.
Yes, if your site is bloated, every single marketing channel you utilize becomes mathematically more expensive.
Because your cost per click might stay the same, but your cost per lead skyrockets. Because fewer people survive the friction of the loading screen.
And Google actually penalizes you for this, right? The quality score mechanism.
Right. Google Ads assigns a quality score to your campaigns. And a massive component of that score is the landing page experience, which is heavily weighted toward load speed.
So if Google determines your site is slow and cluttered, they actually charge you more money per click than a competitor with a fast site, simply because you are providing a worse experience to a Google user.
That's brutal.
Your audiences for retargeting campaigns also weaken because you are building lists full of people who bounced immediately in frustration rather than people who actually browsed inventory. The agency reports traffic, but the sales team starves.
So where does this speed drain and vendor clutter manifest most destructively? It concentrates at the single most critical juncture in the digital journey, the VDP.
The vehicle detail page.
Yeah.
The VDP is the absolute center of gravity for automotive e-commerce. It is the most important piece of digital real estate a dealership owns.
Because it represents the moment intent goes from abstract to concrete.
Exactly. When a user is on the home page, they are merely orienting themselves.
Yeah.
When they're on a search results page looking at 50 different sedans, they're just filtering options.
Right.
But when they click into a specific vehicle detail page, the psychology shifts. They're now looking at one specific piece of metal with a specific VIN number.
They want to know the final price, the odometer reading, the exact trim level, the features.
They want to read the history report and figure out if it is actually still physically on the lot. The VDP is the digital equivalent of a customer walking up to a car on the lot and reading the Monroney sticker in the window.
If it is the equivalent of standing next to the physical car, why do dealerships allow vendors to completely cover it in noise?
It's crazy.
I want to read a list directly from our source material to give everyone listening a visceral sense of the sheer barrage of competing calls to action, the CTAs that a typical customer faces on a single page.
Let's hear it.
A shopper opens a VDP on their phone, and they are hit with this chorus of commands. Chat now, unlock price, value your trade, calculate payment, check availability, get pre-approved, start buying process,
Keats keeps going.
reserve this vehicle, schedule a test drive, watch video walk around, claim special offer, save this vehicle, compare payments, text us, call now. That is 15 distinct competing commands aggressively pushed at the customer simultaneously.
It induces immediate cognitive paralysis.
I feel paralyzed just reading it.
You have to consider the psychological toll of that kind of clutter. In user experience design, there's a concept called Hick's Law. It states that the time it takes for a person to make a decision increases logarithmically as the number of choices increases.
Wow.
When a page has no visual hierarchy, when every single button is bright red, bold, flashing, and demanding attention, the customer's brain literally cannot prioritize.
But every vendor thinks their specific tool is the most vital thing on the page.
Of course they do. The chat vendor thinks chatting is the priority. The finance vendor thinks credit approval is the priority.
But human beings have a finite amount of working memory. When you overload it, the result isn't a faster decision. The result is pure digital noise.
And it creates a massive paradox. The paradox of choice. Dealerships operate under the assumption that adding more conversion tools will catch more types of customers, leading to more leads.
But it actually just creates a wall of friction.
Customers at the bottom of the funnel crave clarity. They are about to spend $40,000. They are anxious.
They need to feel confident in their next step. They need a fast, clear path.
Exactly. Instead of feeling guided by a trusted advisor, they experience this barrage of tools as high-pressure, chaotic sales tactics.
Let's translate this VDP experience back to the physical lot again to see how absurd it really is. Imagine I'm standing next to a used truck.
Okay.
I like the stance. I like the color. I walk up to the window because I just want to know the final out-the-door price. But the second I look at the sticker, a guy in a polo shirt sprints up and screams at me to value my trade.
Oh, gosh.
Before I can answer, another guy taps my shoulder, holding a clipboard, trying to run my credit for a pre-approval.
It's a nightmare.
A third guy steps between me and the truck, shoving an iPad in my face, demanding I watch a video walk-around of the vehicle I am currently touching.
The one right in front of you.
Right. And a fourth guy is waving a neon coupon, yelling that he'll give me $500 off if I write my email address on his hand right now. How do I react?
You leave. You probably run to your car and lock the doors.
I am absolutely fleeing that dealership. So why does the industry assume that a digital shopper has infinitely more patience for that exact same harassment just because it's happening on a piece of glass?
Because there's a massive empathy gap in digital design. We assume that because cognitive intrusion doesn't involve physical proximity, it's somehow less exhausting.
But decision fatigue is real.
Very real. The sources point out something crucial here. We have to realize why these tools behave so aggressively. Website plugins are frequently designed to solve vendor problems, not customer problems.
That is such a critical distinction. What is the vendor's primary problem?
The vendor's problem is survival. They have to prove return on investment to the dealership every 30 days, or their software gets canceled.
Oh, right.
They need attribution. They need to show a dashboard full of form fills, engagement events, hover times, and chat starts. Therefore, their software is aggressively engineered to force that interaction.
Completely disregarding whether the customer is actually in a buying phase ready to interact.
Exactly. But the customer didn't visit the website to help a software company hit its quarterly engagement metrics.
The customer visited the site to answer basic, fundamental buying questions that alleviate their anxiety. Like, is this vehicle actually physically available, or is it a phantom listing?
What is the real transparent price? What is a realistic estimate of my monthly payment? What is a fair market value for my current car?
Can I trust the people at this dealership?
Yes. If a tool seamlessly, quietly helps answer those questions when the customer asks for it, it is a massive asset. But if the tool interrupts the customer's thought process to aggressively demand an email address, it is a liability.
Now that we have established the chaos on this VDP battleground, let's put the specific offenders mentioned in our sources under the microscope. We need to look at the mechanics of how they actually create this friction. Let's start with what is arguably public enemy number one across the entire internet, the pop-up.
The pop-up is the most widely abused tool in digital marketing, and the irony is they almost always originate from a place of genuine intent.
Right. A general manager wants to make sure every customer knows about a huge holiday weekend sale.
Or they want to aggressively push a vehicle acquisition strategy by offering high trade-in values. Or they use exit intent technology to try and catch a customer whose mouse moves toward the close tab button.
But the execution is a nightmare, mostly because the timing is atrocious. The sources point out how ridiculous this is in practice. A customer clicks a link. The VDP starts to load.
The browser is struggling to parse all the JavaScript.
Exactly. And before the customer has even seen the main photo of the vehicle, the entire screen dims, a dark overlay covers the content, which is called a Z-index block in web design, and a giant graphical box commands their attention.
Claim your offer. Chat with an expert. Unlock massive savings.
It is a profound failure of timing and context. The customer hasn't even established if the vehicle has the right interior color yet.
They haven't looked at the mileage. They haven't checked the Carfax history. They have zero context for the vehicle, and you are asking them for a commitment.
Going back to our physical analogies, it's the equivalent of a salesperson sprinting across the parking lot, tackling you as you step out of your car, and demanding you fill out a credit application before you've even walked the lot to see if they sell trucks.
It destroys trust before trust can even be established. Bad timing is inherently aggressive. Now, the danger is that the vendor will sit in a review meeting, pull up their dashboard, and say, look, our pop-up generated 50 leads this month.
And the dealer thinks it works.
What the dashboard cannot measure, what is completely invisible, is the collateral damage. How many high-intent, ready-to-buy shoppers got so annoyed by that aggressive overlay that they lost trust, closed the tab, and bought an identical vehicle from the competitor 10 miles away?
A pop-up might successfully harvest the low-hanging fruit, but it poisons the soil for the rest of the orchard.
Beautifully said.
Let's move to chat widgets. On the surface, chat seems like a customer-centric feature. People love messaging. We text all day. Why wouldn't a customer want to text a dealership?
A well-executed chat experience can be phenomenal. If a customer can ask a specific question and get a fast, accurate answer from someone who actually works at the store, it is highly valuable.
But the reality of automotive chat widgets is that they frequently act as another layer of friction, primarily because they create a false sense of confidence.
Let's break down why they fail. The sources mention aggressive appearance and robotic scripts.
Right. The visual execution is usually the first problem. You land on a page, and a chat bubble slides out, usually accompanied by an annoying notification chime.
And because of how it is coded, it often floats over important parts of the screen.
But the deeper issue is the conversation itself. Many of these tools use automated bots with highly generic, uncanny valley scripts. Hi, I'm Sarah. Are you looking for a new or used car today?
The customer instantly recognizes it's a bot.
Or alternatively, the chat is outsourced to a massive third-party call center located 1,000 miles away.
And the operator in that call center has absolutely no idea what is actually happening on the physical dealership lot.
Exactly. They don't know the inventory, they don't understand the local pricing dynamics, and they don't know if a car was sold an hour ago.
Their only metric for success, the way they get paid, is extracting a name and a phone number from the user. So they provide vague, placating answers to force the lead capture.
So they just collect incredibly weak leads. Just a phone number attached to a frustrated customer?
Yes, but more destructively, they create an expectation gap that the actual dealership staff cannot bridge.
Explain that gap.
A customer might ask the chat operator, is this specific blue truck still available? The operator, trained to get the lead, says, yes, it is. When can you come in for a test drive? The reality is that truck was sold yesterday. The customer drives an hour to the store, finds out the truck is gone, and immediately assumes the dealership ran a bait-and-switch scam on them.
And the real-life sales manager now has to spend an hour unwinding the mess created by a third-party chat widget.
That expectation gap is a massive liability.
And it leads us perfectly to the third offender highlighted in the research, which is dominating the industry conversation right now. Digital retailing. The ultimate promise that a customer can buy an entire car online.
Digital retailing has been sold as the panacea for the modern car business. The pitch is incredibly seductive. Give the customer the power to start and finish their entire deal online.
Right. They can calculate their payment to the exact penny, value their trade-in, select their F&I products, the extended warranties and gap insurance, submit a full credit application, and reserve the vehicle without ever speaking to a human.
In theory, who wouldn't want that? The traditional F&I office, finance, and insurance has a reputation for being the most stressful, high-pressure part of buying a car. People want to skip the finance office.
The theory is sound, but the execution is incredibly difficult because automotive transactions are inherently complex. They are not static purchases.
No, they're not. Buying a $40,000 vehicle is not like adding a $15 phone case to your cart on Amazon.
What makes it so different structurally?
Think about the variables. You have negative equity from trade-ins. You have wildly varying interest rates based on credit tiers that the customer might not honestly know.
You have state-specific tax laws, manufacturer rebates that only apply to certain zip codes or demographics.
And physical vehicle inspections. Desking a car deal requires navigating all of these moving parts. What digital retailing tools attempt to do is replicate that entire complex mathematical ecosystem inside a web browser.
And the sources describe these tools as heavy furniture.
They are massive, complicated layers of code. They have to constantly use APIs to call different databases, checking Kelley Blue Book for trade values, checking a bank for interest rates, checking the dealer's CRM. All of those calls take time.
So the widget sits on top of the base website, slowing everything down.
Yes.
But I have to challenge this based on consumer trends. Don't people constantly talk about the Amazonification of retail? Don't shoppers genuinely want a fully autonomous checkout for cars?
A tiny fraction of the market does. There are early adopters who want zero human interaction. But the vast majority of car buyers do not want a fully autonomous checkout.
Really?
They are terrified of making a $40,000 mistake. What the average customer actually wants is simply transparency. They want a realistic payment estimate that won't change when they arrive.
They want a fair, mathematically sound range for their trade-in.
And they want a real human being to confirm the car isn't already sold.
So when a heavy digital retailing tool forces them into a mandatory 10-step process just to see an estimated lease payment,
it becomes a massive obstacle. The tool takes too long to load, it opens in a clunky modal window, and it demands highly personal information like a social security number way too early in the dating process.
But the absolute worst-case scenario goes back to that expectation gap again.
Yes. If a digital retailing tool uses a default interest rate and tells a customer their payment will be $400 a month, but the customer's actual credit score dictates a payment of $550 a month in the real world.
The dealership is the one who has to break that news.
And the customer instantly feels lied to. They think the dealer is pulling a fast one.
The digital tool engineered a false reality. The real-life sales manager is now trapped. They have to spend hours unwinding that expectation, explaining the math, and calming the customer down.
Very often, the dealership has to surrender gross profit, literally discounting the price of the car, just to bridge the gap, regain trust, and solve the deal.
If you are paying a vendor thousands of dollars a month for a tool that forces you to lose profit just to apologize for its inaccurate math, that is the definition of expensive, useless furniture.
Exactly.
Everything we've discussed so far sounds infuriating, even if I am sitting at a desk with a massive 24-inch monitor, a mouse, and a high-speed fiber internet connection.
Right.
But these pop-ups, these chat widgets, this heavy digital retailing code, what happens to the user experience when we shrink the canvas? We need to explore the mobile disaster.
This represents perhaps the most critical disconnect in the entire automotive marketing ecosystem. Look at how websites are built and approved.
The dealership general manager, the marketing director, and the advertising agency representatives sit in a quiet, climate-controlled conference room.
Right, they project the new website onto a massive flat-screen TV, or they review it on their high-end laptops.
It looks spacious, the graphics pop.
In that environment, a chat bubble neatly tucked into the bottom right corner looks perfectly acceptable.
But where are the actual customers?
Upwards of 80% of automotive shopping traffic happens on mobile devices. A plug-in that looks completely unobtrusive on a desktop monitor becomes a claustrophobic nightmare on a 6-inch phone screen.
Our sources detail these mobile UI nightmares so vividly, UI meaning user interface. Let's talk about absolute positioning and Z-index issues. The chat bubble loads, and because of how the screen real estate is constrained, it perfectly covers the primary click-to-call button.
Yes. The developer of the chat tool coded it to sit on the bottom right. The developer of the website coded the call button to sit on the bottom right.
They fight for the same pixels.
And the third-party script usually wins. blocking the most important lead action a mobile user can take.
Or you have the sticky widget problem. A trade-in widget anchors itself permanently to the bottom of the screen. Then, a legal cookie consent banner anchors itself to the top.
Suddenly, the customer is trying to view high-resolution photos of a vehicle through a tiny 1-inch slit in the middle of their phone.
And mobile environments are inherently unstable anyway.
Right. The page layout shifts violently as different third-party scripts load at different speeds. The text jumps down, the image resizes.
The customer is trying to use their thumb to scroll down and read the engine specs, but as the page jumps, their thumb accidentally taps the edge of the digital retailing module.
It instantly redirects them to a heavy, slow-loading finance page they never wanted to visit.
You also have to factor in the context of the mobile shopper. They are not sitting in a conference room.
Context is everything. Mobile shoppers are deeply impatient and heavily distracted. They are multitasking. They might be sitting in the chaotic waiting area of a service center trying to keep an eye on their kids.
They might be on the couch half watching a baseball game.
They might be sitting in the passenger seat of a moving car, dealing with a cellular connection that constantly drops from 5G to weak LTE as they drive between towers.
They have absolutely zero tolerance for a page that fights their inputs.
If the mobile VDP is cluttered, unstable, and unresponsive, they will simply swipe the app closed before the dealership's analytics even register that they were there.
This transitions into something I think a lot of business owners completely miss. They view a glitchy chat tool or a slow load time as an IT error. But this is not just a technical glitch. This is active brand damage.
It is a colossal brand issue. We have to understand consumer psychology here. Customers do not mentally separate your vendors from your business entity.
They don't look at their phone and rationalize, well, the base website infrastructure provided by vendor A is very fast, but unfortunately this annoying chatbot provided by vendor B is malfunctioning, and the broken payment calculator from vendor C is frustrating.
Not for a second. The halo effect applies to everything on that domain. The customer experiences all of those disparate tools as a single, unified entity, the dealership.
Wow. So if the site takes 6 seconds to load, they blame the store for being outdated.
If the chat operator gives them a wrong answer about inventory, they blame the store for lying.
If the pop-up feels sleazy and aggressive, they assume the sales culture on the showroom floor will be sleazy and aggressive.
Exactly.
Which means every single piece of third-party code you authorize on your website is essentially acting as an employee representing your company. You've handed them a uniform with your dealership's logo on it. Ask yourself this. If you ran a physical dealership, would you hire a third-party vendor, put them in a shirt with your logo, and let them stand in the middle of your showroom aggressively jumping in front of customers to demand their email address before letting them look at the cars?
You would fire them immediately. It would be catastrophic for the brand.
But that is exactly what is happening on the mobile phone.
We blindly accept digital behavior that we would instantly identify as toxic in the physical world. The long-term cost of this brand damage is virtually incalculable.
Because it translates directly to lost sales before the physical sales team ever gets an opportunity to say hello.
The customer simply decides, based purely on digital friction, this place is too difficult to deal with. And they move on to a competitor with a cleaner interface.
So this brings us to the most perplexing part of our deep dive today. If the evidence is this clear, if these plugins are ruining the mobile experience, if they are mathematically slowing down the site, if they are causing measurable brand damage and creating massive expectation gaps, and if they are actively pushing high-intent customers away, why do dealers keep paying for them?
It's a great question.
Why don't they just go into the tag manager and hit delete?
It all comes down to the battle for credit. The digital ecosystem is plagued by an absolute mess of attribution.
The attribution fog. This is where the money is actually changing hands. Let's get deeply into the mechanics of this.
To understand the fog, you have to look at a typical customer journey, which happens thousands of times a day. Imagine a shopper who has been meticulously researching a specific heavy-duty truck for a month.
Okay.
They have watched YouTube reviews, read forums, checked their finances. They are a high-intent buyer, fully intending to purchase. They type the dealership's name into Google, click the organic link, and land on the VDP for that specific truck.
They are as bottom of the funnel as it gets.
Exactly. Now watch what happens behind the scenes as that page loads. The chat widget fires an automated greeting. The trade-in tool drops a cookie on the user's browser.
The customer data platform script fires to identify the IP address.
The call tracking script swaps the phone number on the page. And the retargeting pixel from the ad agency logs the visit. Finally, the customer ignores all the widgets, clicks the standard check availability form built into the base website, fills it out, and comes in the next day to buy the truck.
The dealership gets the win. The car is sold.
The car is sold. But the chaos happens at the end of the month when the vendors present their reports.
Oh, boy.
The chat vendor looks at their data and says, our widget engaged this user during their session. We influenced this sale. Pay us.
The trade tool vendor looks at their cookie data and says, we were present on the page before they converted. We influenced this sale. Pay us.
The ad agency, looking at the retargeting pixel, claims the conversion for their dashboard. You have 5 different entities all pointing to the exact same sold unit, claiming they drove the value.
How does the analytics dashboard process that? If you use last click attribution, it just gives credit to whatever they touched last.
Right, which is usually the primary form. But the vendors use multi-touch attribution models to claim partial credit, or they use view through conversions, meaning if the tool merely loaded on the screen while the user was there, they claim an assist.
So are dealerships essentially paying thousands of dollars to vendors just to take credit for organic traffic that was going to buy the car anyway?
In a shocking number of cases, yes. Excessive plugins create this attribution fog. It makes the website's analytics look incredibly robust and active. There are engagements, hovers, and interactions everywhere.
But it completely masks reality.
It becomes mathematically impossible for a general manager to know which tools are actually driving incremental sales, meaning a sale that definitively would not have happened if the tool wasn't there, and which tools are simply acting as digital toll booth, taking credit for shoppers who arrived ready to buy.
That is maddening for a business owner. And it creates a toxic culture where the dealership blames the wrong people when conversion rates drop.
The scapegoat in this scenario is almost always the primary website provider. A dealer will look at their slow, glitchy, bouncing website, pick up the phone, and scream at their website platform representative.
Right.
Now, sometimes platform providers do have server issues, but very frequently, the base website infrastructure, the server-side code, is perfectly fine and fast. The site is just buckling under the immense weight of 40 different client-side third-party scripts that the dealership or their ad agency demanded be installed via Tag Manager.
It's like the foundation of the house is built of solid concrete, but the owner has parked 5 tanks on the roof, and they are blaming the architect when the ceiling cracks.
That's the reality. Every external script you add creates a new dependency. Every vendor tag is a potential point of failure.
When a browser tries to load a page, it has to fetch all those scripts.
If the servers for the chat vendor in another state go down or experience latency, the entire dealership website might hang and refuse to load visually while it waits for that broken chat script to respond. You are giving third-party companies the power to completely break your digital storefront.
Our sources provide a golden rule here that cuts through the fog. I think every single person managing digital assets needs to write this on a sticky note and put it on their monitor. Quote, a dealer should not pay for a tool because it appears somewhere in the customer journey. They should pay for it because it improves the journey.
That is the ultimate dividing line. Just being present on the screen when a conversion happens is not enough to justify the speed and trust tax the plugin extracts from the site.
The tool has to actually remove friction from the customer's path or add undeniable, measurable value to their decision-making process.
Right.
So we have comprehensively diagnosed the hidden drain. We know the specific culprits, the poorly timed pop-ups, the generic chatbots, the heavy digital furniture.
We understand the psychology behind Hick's law and the paradox of choice.
We see clearly how the attribution fog keeps these vendors on the payroll. The ultimate question is, how does a dealership actually fix this? How do they reclaim control of their digital real estate?
The very first step is acknowledging a behavioral flaw that the sources call the set it and forget it problem. As we established, tag managers made plugins incredibly easy to add, but they rarely get removed.
It is the digital equivalent of the junk drawer in your kitchen. Everyone has one.
Oh, totally.
You throw a takeout menu in there, some spare AA batteries, a random screw you found on the floor, a rubber band. You close the drawer and you never think about it again until it gets so full it won't open. Dealerships are doing this exact same thing with code.
It is a perfect parallel. A new vendor gets installed for a 30-day free trial. The trial ends, the dealership decides the tool didn't generate enough leads to justify the cost, so they don't sign the contract.
But nobody ever remembers to log into the tag manager and actually delete the JavaScript.
So the dead code just sits there, still loading on every page view. An ad agency runs a highly specific holiday campaign with a custom tracking pixel. The holiday ends, the campaign is turned off, but the pixel continues to fire and drain milliseconds of load time for the next 4 years.
Over time, the website just fills up with dead weight, and nobody in the organization takes ownership of the cleanup.
Exactly.
So how do we force that cleanup?
The source introduces a brilliant operational framework, the speed budget.
I love this concept. Dealerships understand financial budgets intimately. If a GM tells the marketing department their monthly ad spend is capped at $20,000, everyone understands the assignment. You have to allocate those dollars efficiently.
They need to apply that exact same ruthless financial discipline to website latency. You establish a strict budget of, let's say, 2.5 seconds of maximum mobile load time.
Every single plugin, widget, overlay, and tracking script has to earn its place inside that 2.5-second budget.
If a vendor's tool costs you 400 milliseconds of load time, it is consuming nearly 20% of your entire budget. It must produce enough tangible, measurable value in actual sold units, not just micro-engagements or dashboard vanity metrics, to justify that massive cost. If it cannot definitively prove its worth, it gets cut.
But to figure out what gets cut, you have to audit the site. And our sources are very specific about the methodology of this audit. You cannot audit like a vendor.
If you audit like a vendor, you sit in a comfortable office on high-speed internet, open a PDF report, look at a dashboard full of green arrows and multi-touch attribution models, and pat yourself on the back.
To find the actual truth, you have to audit like a customer.
Yes.
Let's walk through that exercise. How does a general manager do this right now?
Take your mobile phone out of your pocket, turn off your high-speed Wi-Fi connection so you are forced onto a standard cellular network.
Okay.
If you want to be really thorough, walk outside or into a concrete part of your service drive so you have a weak connection. Replicate the real-world constraints of your buyers. Now, hold the phone in one hand. Search for a specific vehicle in your inventory on Google, click the ad link, and just wait.
Count the seconds in your head. 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi.
Count the seconds until the page actually feels usable. Not just when the first line of text appears, but when you can actually scroll down without the page violently shifting and throwing your thumb off target.
Right.
Then, using only your thumb, try to naturally flip through the photo gallery. Try to find the out-the-door price. Try to close the pop-up that inevitably fires. Try to submit a lead form.
And crucially, pay attention to your own biological response. How frustrated do you get?
Pay attention to your blood pressure. Ask yourself objectively, was this a fast premium experience? Was the path clear? Did a widget block my thumb from tapping a button? Did I trust the math on the payment calculator?
If you were a real customer with no loyalty to this store, would you have persevered, or would you have bounced back to Google to find a competitor's site?
That raw 5-minute exercise on a weak cell connection will reveal infinitely more truth about the health of your digital marketing than a 50-page slide deck of vendor analytics.
Okay, so a dealer does this exercise. They realize their site is a chaotic, sluggish mess. What is the execution step?
The vendor cleanup meeting. This is an absolute operational necessity, and it should be scheduled biannually. You gather all the key stakeholders in one room.
The general manager, the internet sales director, the advertising agency account manager, and your website provider representative.
You project a list of every single script, tag, container, and third-party tool currently firing on your domain.
And you interrogate every single line of code on that screen.
You show no mercy. You ask, who exactly owns this tool? Why is it here? What is its latency cost? What is its financial cost?
Does it create macro conversions that turn into car sales? Or does it just harvest micro conversions to justify its existence? Does its functionality overlap with another tool we already pay for?
Our sources actually provide a fantastic hit list of what to cut first. It is incredibly satisfying to read.
What's on it?
You start by purging all the old tracking scripts from canceled vendors and expired campaigns. You cut duplicate analytics tags. You delete the chat tool that nobody internally ever logs into.
You aggressively cut overlapping widgets. You do not need 3 different vendor tools offering to value a trade-in on the exact same page.
You cut anything that utilizes Z-index blocking to cover up key navigation buttons on a mobile viewport. And most importantly, you cut anything that your actual sales team tells you is constantly creating expectation gaps and confusing customers on the floor.
We have covered a massive amount of ground today. What is the ultimate ideal state we are trying to achieve here? Because the goal isn't just to strip the site down to a bare text-only HTML page from 1998.
No, modernization is important, But the tools that survive the purge, the plugins that actually earn the right to stay on your website, must meet an incredibly high standard.
They have to be lightning fast.
They must be flawlessly responsive on mobile devices. They cannot duplicate the function of the base website or another tool. And above all, they must actively, quietly help the customer make a complex financial decision.
So a strong, highly accurate trade evaluation tool can stay. A clean digital retailing path that honors real-world dealership math and doesn't bait and switch the customer can stay.
It ultimately boils down to creating a ruthlessly simple conversion path. Based on everything in the text, the ideal digital flow should be nothing more than see the vehicle, understand the transparent price, review high-quality photos, check a realistic payment estimate, confirm the physical availability, schedule the visit.
Anything that supports that specific flow is an asset. Anything that distracts, delays, or interrupts that flow is a toxic liability.
To synthesize the core message of the research, the best dealership website experience feels guided. The worst experience feels ambushed.
A guided journey versus a chaotic ambush. That is the fundamental difference between owning a digital showroom and managing a vendor parking lot. And it brings us to the ultimate lesson for you, our listener, to take away from this deep dive.
Absolutely.
Your website is not supposed to be a vendor showcase. It does not exist to make third-party software companies look innovative or to pad out their engagement metrics for their next round of funding.
It exists to sell cars.
Full stop. Every single plugin, every line of JavaScript, every chat widget or pop-up that slows down that primary goal is not a feature. It is a leak in your funnel. It is draining the efficiency of your ad budget, damaging your brand's reputation, and exhausting your buyers before they ever meet your team.
The hidden drain of excessive website plugins is real, but it is entirely fixable with discipline.
We want to thank you for coming along on this deep dive into the mechanics of digital friction. We know we covered a tremendous amount of technical and psychological ground today, and it probably makes you want to pull out your phone and audit your own site right now.
You definitely should.
But before you do, we want to leave you with one final provocative thought to mull over. We talked extensively today about auditing your digital junk drawer and firing the third-party vendors that crowd your website and talk over your brand.
Yeah.
But it makes you wonder, if your digital storefront has become this cluttered with third-party voices dictating the customer experience, where else in your business, in your physical showroom, your service drive, or your sales process have you accidentally handed the microphone over to vendors instead of speaking directly to your own customers? Think about it.